Hello and welcome to the second Magic Sandwich Show of 2012. And it is a great honor to welcome to this show the president of American Atheist, David Silverman. Welcome to the show, David.
Hey, thanks for having me on, everybody. It's great to be here.
And also the usual suspects, Concordance, Thunderfoot, and Aaron Ra. Concordance is going to have to leave us within the next 30 minutes to an hour, which is a bit of a shame, but rather than me rabbit on, as I normally do in an introduction, because we have David Silverman with us, I'm going to not do that. I'll just remind you that it is a call-in show, and if you would like to call in and speak to David or any other of the panelists, send a Skype contact request to Magic Sandwich Show, all one word, on Skype. Please include in that the gist of the question or the topic that you would like to talk about, and we'd be welcome to hear from you. David, I put up a promotional video for this program about 4 days ago, and it included in it clips of various interviews that you've had on Fox News. And before we come on to the serious points, there are a couple of issues that have arisen that people have asked me to ask you.
Okay, go for it.
How does it feel to be pwned and owned by Bill O'Reilly on national television?
I wouldn't know.
Oh, come on. David, don't be like, I've got the transcript here. He said to you, the tides go in, the tides go out. You can't explain that. I've looked at that transcript, and I have to say, you never at one stage explained that to him. So that's 1-0 to Bill to me.
Oh, no, that was a completely deliberate thing. Certainly, you have to understand that Bill O'Reilly is playing a part, okay? And what Bill's job is not to debate me. His job, and it's not just about me, of course, his job is to make his opponents look bad by taking them off the subject. And what Bill wanted to do when he started talking about the tides was he wanted to get me off the subject of how ridiculous it was to believe in a God when you're normally a skeptical person. I saw that. I'm not going to allow that to derail me. I was there to talk about, at that time, I was there to talk about the convention and the billboard that we had going on. I was not there to talk about lunar gravity. And, just because he asked me and wanted to take me off onto that subject doesn't mean I have to go there. That's his attempt to take over the conversation and me saying no.
Yes, and I think that's actually a good segue into the next point I was going to make. When I looked at the clips of you to put into the video, this sort of style that Fox News has becomes very apparent. I mean, you very rarely are allowed to finish a sentence. And if you do, immediately the topic is then changed. So my question would be, when you go on to Fox News and you know that this is going to happen, do you go there with the thought, well, I'm just going to make sure I get my point across? Or do you think you come across more belligerently than you might do otherwise? I mean, how do you approach a Fox News interview?
That's an excellent question. When I go into a Fox News interview, I have a specific set of points that I have to say. I have a specific number of sentences. I have specific words that I want to get out. I want to get out my website. I want to get out the point of this whole thing. And I'd want to do it in such a way that doesn't make me look too aggressive, but certainly gets me out. And when you're dealing with a Bill O'Reilly, when you're dealing with Sean Hannity, when you're dealing with Megyn Kelly, you get seconds to do that before they interrupt you. And of course, the sound is preferred to them. So if you talk at the same time, they win. So it's a contest. It's a game. He's going to ask you a question, or she's going to ask me a question, and I'm going to have a very fixed amount of time just to get a few words out to answer it. And hopefully I'll do that before I'm interrupted again.
I'm interrupting you now. Sorry, do go on. I don't have sound preference.
Yes, but you're not hostile. And when you're dealing with a hostile audience, you have to ask yourself why you're doing it. And the reason, I get asked often, why in the world do I do it if I'm not talking to my target audience? I'm not talking to people, and I'm certainly not going to convince Bill O'Reilly that he's wrong. I'm not going to get him to say, okay, well, you're right. Every time I get close to that point, he changes the subject, which is going back to the tides go in, tides go out thing. If you look at that video, that's exactly where we were going. The target audience on Fox News is other television stations and other media outlets. The atheists that are watching Fox News, yeah, they're there. But that's really not so much my target. My target is the other media outlets and the theists that are watching Fox News. And why am I targeting the theists? Am I going to convert them on Fox News? Of course not. But I am going to get them talking about what I said. If I am blunt enough, if I am good enough, I'll get the theists talking about what I said over their dinner table. And very likely, somewhere in that dinner table, there's a closeted atheist. Somewhere in that church, there's a closeted atheist. In fact, there are several. So, yeah, I'm trying to get my point across, but really I'm trying to get the theists talking about atheists, and I'm trying to get the other networks to bring me on as well. It's not as if I'm choosing to go on Fox News and not CNN. You have to be invited on. And if you look at the records of when I've been on those other networks, almost all the time, it's been after a Fox News appearance. And that's the point.
Fox has its benefits. One of the comments that was left on the video actually referred to something that you were touched upon earlier. That is to say that the comment was that you had stated somewhere that in the warm-up to the show, you'd had a conversation with Bill, and he came across, Bill O'Reilly he came across as a perfectly rational, sensible person, but he puts on this persona of being whatever character he has to play for Fox News' benefit. Explain a bit about that. I mean, is he, underneath it all, is he actually quite sensible?
He's satire, but sorry, he's Colbert, but non-satire. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I think the comment was...
Bill O'Reilly, it's almost like Meatloaf. It's a screen character. Yeah, Bill O'Reilly's the sort of screen character.
Yes. Off screen, look, I've been on O'Reilly twice now. And the first time was several years ago when I sat down. The first time I went to see him, I sat down. They sat me at the screen. It was a live show. They sat me down. We went live. We were off in 8 minutes, and we were done. Now, what happened this time is they sat me down, and it's a pre-recorded show now because they want to edit. So we sat down, and we actually had a substantial conversation off camera, the two of us. And yeah, he is knowledgeable. He is eloquent. He is not ignorant. He knew who I was. He knew who Madeleine Murray O'Hare was. He knew about, he knew about certain things in the movement that only people who are paying attention would know. And then he said, "Okay, we're gonna go online and we're gonna duke it out." And I said, "Okay, let's have some fun," something to that effect. And then the TV persona Bill O'Reilly came out, and we went on television, and we started recording, and that was the end of that. And that's why the whole tide goes in, tide goes out thing. It was partially a derailment, but also it was a little bit of a realization that Bill O'Reilly, as we all know him, doesn't really exist, and that in fact, Bill O'Reilly is a smart guy who's very, very good at being Bill O'Reilly on TV.
There's a second interview that I want to touch upon very briefly, if I could, David, and that's the one in which I don't know who was interviewing with or the names of the other people, but it was what do atheists do in a crisis? And it had a woman on, I don't know her name, but by virtue of the fact that she did a very good impression of a cat being strangled when she spoke, she actually managed to put 7 syllables into the word no. And that was in response to the question that you posed to her, which I thought was wonderful, was, is your God sending the hurricane? And then that's when you got the no. I mean, yeah.
I was thinking.
No, I thought it was wonderful.
John.
Please let me, because I thought it was wonderful. And because your follow-up question was, could your God stop it? And we got a slightly shortened version, but with the same number of syllables, no, in it. And you said I think one of two questions. Yours was brilliant, but the one that I was minded to ask was, I think you said in that case your God is not all powerful. I would have said, well, what is the point of praying then? But again, just in general terms, there's a situation where you're up against, I can't remember who the host was, and I don't know her name, but you also had a third person. Right.
Yeah, it was Stuart Varney and another guy and the woman, the screeching woman. And that was a very, very, it was disconcerting because it was put to me in a dishonest fashion. Originally, they brought me on to talk about parsonage rebates for churches, which is something that I find very important because it's a clear violation of the Constitution that corporations that are religious based get breaks. So I went through all my preparations. I did all my research. I had some good lines to go on, and in the limo on the way to the studio, they called me, and they told me that no, we're going to change the subject. We're going to talk about the hurricane. And all right, so I went into this pretty unprepared. And I sit down, and it's Fox Business, not Fox News, and it's Stuart Varney, who I'm familiar with, and he is not a Bill O'Reilly. He's a financial guy. So I sat down with him and the other two people, and Stuart says to me, now listen, Mr. Silverman, this is not going to be a fight. This is not going to be aggressive. This is just going to be a calm, rational discussion. I said, fine, that's great. That's what I like. That's what I prefer. I get my points across, you get your points across, and we'll have fun. And then
so
you saw what happened.
Why do you hate God? Yes.
Why do you hate God? You say you're an atheist. That's mocking me. Everything that you do is mocking me.
If I may help you here, because this is something that I did start transcribing last night, because I thought that it was a useful insight into the way in which you are treated when you appear on Fox News. Mm-hmm. And the opening question to you on the video that they have on their site, you were asked, what do you do in a crisis? That was the context of it. Your answer was, we prepare. And you went on to say that hands that help are better than lips that pray. Right. Now, this is what really irritates me about Fox News. That's a perfectly good point. But what is the next question? He then says, have you no life outside your own personal self? This
has nothing to do with the hurricane at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you then answer that. I thought, wonderfully, no, and neither do you.
Right.
You just think you do, and you went on. And then he says, well, that's kind of mocking people of faith. No, it isn't mocking. And you say, I'm not trying to mock. He then goes on, and this, again, from what you've just told us about the reason you were going to be interviewed for the initial reason, and subsequent that being changed, where is this question coming from? You are mocking people who find comfort in something outside their immediate selves, their spiritual lives, blah, blah, blah. To which you say, there is no such thing as a spiritual life, that is their perception. And that's when the screeching woman first butts in and screeches, honestly, I had to play that video several times to edit it, and I got
And I want to say, just so that you know, I was deliberately silent while she was speaking, because she was screeching, because she was so obviously flustered, because she was so obviously out of control. I did not interrupt her. I wanted that screeching. I wanted that to go on and on and on forever. And then when she gave me the opportunity for the Epicurus questions, obviously it was something that she had absolutely never considered. And Epicurus's questions are among the oldest questions. The problem of evil is it's among the oldest issue, and nobody's really even thought about it. And she had obviously never considered the fact that her God couldn't or wouldn't stop the hurricane from coming in, which is why she answered that question incorrectly.
Yes, and there's a wonderful moment. It's only a few frames long, where there's an expression on her face where she suddenly realizes what she's just said. David, I know that I'm taking up too much of your time with my questions, and I know that people want to talk to you. I just want to very briefly move on, if we may. You are president of American Atheists. Can you tell us, please, what they do, what your involvement is, how you got involved with them?
Well, American Atheists is America's oldest nonprofit organization for atheists. We were founded in 1963 by Madalyn Murray O'Hair, who sued to take the school prayer out of forced prayer out of public schools. Now what we do is we're essentially the Marines of the free thought movement. We fight the fights that need to be fought, even if they're unpopular. We take the stance that needs to be taken, even if it's politically incorrect. We're the ones that say things and do things that need to be said and done, even if the theists don't like it. We do it because it needs to be done. Now, that does not mean that we're out just to piss off the theists. We're out to say what the theists need to hear. For instance, your religion is just like every other mythology that you dismiss. Your religion is ridiculous. God is a figment of your imagination, and people who believe in gods are suffering from a delusion. And this is the truth. This is honesty. It's just like what I said to Stuart. We don't have a spiritual life, and neither do you. People need to hear that because we're the ones who will take religion off of the pedestal on which it demands to be and actually address it as an equal. One of the things that got me involved in this movement, I've been involved in the movement and specifically in American Atheists for about 15 years. I started out going to protests. My first event was the Promise Keepers event in Washington, D.C. That was a lot of people don't even remember what the Promise Keepers were. The Promise Keepers were a big Christian cult, okay? And they were all about male dominance. They were all about men apologizing to their women for not taking control of the marriage, okay, and then taking control of marriage. And they said a lot of things about atheists at this rally that really, really made me angry. And then I went back to the protest line, and I'm all pissed off because I listened to these people just lie. And CNN was there on our protest, on our picket line, and they put the cameras on me and they started filming me, and I did pretty well, and I said some pretty good things, and they put me on CNN, and they liked it. And then the national director of state operations, Neil Carey, who is now the chairman of the board, we started talking, and after a very short time I was state director. And I was state director in 1998 all the way up through maybe 2003 when I became national spokesperson and then vice president. So I've kind of gone up the line at American Atheists, and really what we're trying to do right now is focus on our market segment, focus on what we do. American Atheists is here for the movement, to raise the tide for the movement. We are not trying to be a big umbrella organization. That's what we do not want to do. We want to target our efforts and let the other atheist organizations out there attract their market.
Can we just talk about targeting? Because shortly before we went live, you were explaining some of the things that you specifically target, or American Atheists target, and you were referring to a number of legal cases that you've taken. Do you want to tell us about that, please?
Yeah, well, it's like I said, as the Marines of Free Thought, we have to take the cases. It's part of our charter to take cases that other organizations and other people don't want to take. And it's very important that we take those cases, because those cases are set up specifically so that nobody will challenge them, so that they will set precedent. Example, the state of Utah passed a law that said no roadside memorials were allowed. That's legal. Then they passed an addition to that law that said, okay, we're going to allow roadside memorials, but only for state troopers. That's fine too. But then they said, that the only monument that they're going to allow for roadside troopers was a 12-foot tall steel cross. And the reason, and they weren't going to allow any deviation from that design, even if the trooper wasn't Christian. There was always going to be a cross. And their statement was that this is okay because the cross isn't religious. Now, what this means is that had we let this sit, the cross would have become legally a secular monument, meaning you could put it up anywhere without regards to equal access, which would mean that the very next step, the next time a child dies in school and the teary-eyed parents put together $1,000 to put up a cross in their auditorium, a secular cross for their auditorium, memorializing their dead kid, they would have fallen back on the unchallenged state trooper crosses that were also secular.
I have to say, as a lawyer, I admire their invention to say that the cross isn't religious and it's secular. That's brilliant.
It's a great idea, and it's happening all over the place. But now we took that case. Nobody else took it. Okay, it was American Atheists and some individual plaintiffs in Utah, but we were the only organization that took it. We were to the best of my knowledge, nobody actually even filed amicus briefs on our side. We had dozens of politicians against us, But guess what? We were right, and we went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and we won just a month ago. And that keeps the cross Christian. And that sets a precedent that makes positive law and reverberates throughout the nation. So this is one way that we stepped in. And what were we doing? We were fighting against dead troopers. We were fighting against the families of fallen officers. How terrible we were. How awful we were. Think about the children with the tears going up to the cross and looking up for their father and look at what terrible people we were. No, the actual truth was the state of Utah and the Utah Highway Patrolmen's Agency were using dead cops as a shield for a very dishonest attempt to secularize a Christian symbol so that they could put it on public land without challenge. That was the case, and that's the case we filed, and that's the case we won.